Hey, what's up, guys? So the task at hand today is I want to put some new front brakes on the Envoy. The brakes and rotors on it are in good shape. I've already inspected them. I just don't feel like they stop like they should. The braking power in this thing is about as bad as the gas mileage, especially towing a trailer, even a small, 2,000 pound load. The brakes just don't like it. It just is what it is. So I went ahead and splurged and I bought the Power Stop toe, like heavy duty like toe brake pads and rotors. So they definitely seem pretty legit. I mean, I've not seen too many brake pads with finishes like that. Comes with the hardware. We've got the drilled slotted rotors that are even labeled. I've done countless brake jobs and I've never seen them label the rotors. So I don't know. My garage is an absolute wreck. But that being said, let's get into this job. Should be pretty easy. I've not done them on this car before, but I'm assuming it's going to be like any other brake job. So let's get to it. Always jack up the car with the jack stand under it. I leave the jack stand and the jack both there. I'm just going to do one side at a time. I don't need to break any records here. Looks like 19 mil on the lugs. See, these brakes and rotors, I don't know if y'all are going to be able to see this or not. Probably not. No. There's tons of meat left. These pads look pretty new. But like I said, they just don't stop good. So I'm going to zip these things off. Being a pad and rotor job, we're going to have to remove the caliper from the bracket in order to slide the rotor off, which is going to be 2 bolts. One of them is going to be, camera won't focus at all. One of them is going to be right there, and then the other one will be basically directly under that. Alright guys, so I'm in here a little bit further. It is 18 millimeters for the caliper bracket, 13 millimeter for the caliper itself. You got to take the 13 millimeters out first, get the caliper off, support the caliper so it's not dangling by the hose. Those are your 13 mil caliper bolts and the slide pins. We're going to clean those up, re-grease them, make sure there's no rust on them. I did go ahead and push the pistons back in already. And so what I'm going to do now is get this bracket back off, get this hardware back off, cleaned, lubed, put back on, and then we should be about ready for assembly. So anyways, yeah, so let me go ahead and do that, and we'll keep it going. All right, so now we're back at the bench. I got some brake clean, got my new hardware, or my shims there, my guide pins or my slide pins, and the caliper bracket itself. We're just gonna kind of clean up where the shims sit in here. Give them some grease. Let me actually grab that grease real quick. Alrighty. Just want to inspect these and make sure nothing's crazy. No big rust. There's a lip on this where the boot sits. That needs to be clean. You can take a brush, small screwdriver, scrape any of that stuff off. Should be pretty good. Yep, no more rust chunks on there. Nice and clean up in here. So that one's ready. That looks pretty good to me. All right, so that one's good. This is the new hardware. Nothing really needs to be done to that. I had it on there preemptively. I was trying to figure something out. Alrighty. So now on the caliper bracket, you want these channels here where my finger is to be clean. That's where your shim sits, as well as your brake pads actually sit in here. So you want that to be clean and free of rust as well. But this stuff's important, because if you don't get this right, you're gonna have a hell of a time trying to get your brake pads in. kind of some. That's about as good as that's going to get on that side for me. This side looks pretty good, actually. Let's go over it real quick. Just using a metal wire brush. Alright, so yeah, basically just clean these until you get those nice and rust free, you don't feel anything, and then we'll proceed to the next step. You also want to make sure you're cleaning in these these holes. They're kind of a pain to clean in. A Q-tip might do good. I think they make brushes for this. I don't have that. So I'm just kind of putting this towel into like, twisting this up into a point and kind of just getting it in there. But yeah, don't forget that step. And as soon as I feel confident with those, we'll lube it up and move on.
We go behind the silver garage.
Alright, so got a little bit of grease on my finger here. I'm just going to kind of put it in here where these shim sits. You don't want too much, just a little bit. Okay, so now we should go to put these shims in. They just kind of snap right on. They should kind of stay, but there's no like locking thing per se. This one's a little bit loose. I don't like that much. Oh, that's why. There we go. So this is why you want it to be super clean. You want this to fit perfectly. Otherwise, you're never going to get your pads in here. Ask me how I know. So these all look pretty good.
Daddy?
Yeah.
Did you say we could go 2, 3, 4?
Alright, take some brake grease on these pins here. You want it all the way up. I'm going to use my fingers here in a second.
Hello, tree girl.
Okay. Now just for the meantime, I'm just going to kind of put this back in here. Make sure it feels normal. Slide smooth.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It feels good.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Here I come.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and get this back over to the truck. We should be able to put the bracket on, the pads, and then the caliper. Alright, we should be able to pop this bracket back on. With our 18 mils. Provided you put it on the right way. There was no Loctite on these. I would typically put Loctite on them, but there was none on there. So I guess I'm just gonna send it.
She still was following me.
Alright, kids are driving me crazy today out there playing, but alright, so I got the bracket loosely bolted on. And the caliper bracket, I think, gets torqued to 115 foot-pounds, maybe? So, I guess I should probably go ahead and do that. If I can get in there. Let me see. Alrighty, that should be fine. There's our bolts. Oops. Let me get that torque wrench set.
Did I bring my little plate of food in here? Where'd it go?
I don't know, buddy.
I hope it's safe wherever it is. And I hope it's not spilling. And stop it. Carol, where's my tiny plate of food? What? I bring them a tiny plate of food, and now I don't know where it is. Cool. Hope it's safe. I'm never
All right. So those are at 105. All right. So now we should be able to put the pads on. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the ears of the pads. Just like on these things here.
Why are you sitting there? Daddy, I'm not coming in there. I'm just doing over here. Why is Kevin sitting down right here?
Do the backside pad on the ears. And I'm also going to put some on the piston where it presses on the back of the pad here once we're ready for that. Should be good. That one's not sitting in there perfectly flush, but I think alright, so now we should be ready for the caliper to go back on here. Let me get a little bit of grease for the pistons.
I'll stop doing that. You'll stop doing that to me, okay? You'll stop doing that stuff to me. What am I doing?
So hopefully you can see, just literally put some grease on the outside of those pistons. In theory, this. Alrighty, there we go. Time for the 13 mil caliper bolts. And I think those only get torqued to 35. And again, there's no thread locker on these. There you go, just a little bit of thread locker. These caliper bolts. There we go. And torque these things up to 35. It's not very tight, but they're usually not real tight, so it makes sense. Alrighty guys, there you pretty much have it. Nothing fancy, I'm not a mechanic, but I feel confident in everything that we just did. Lube the right spots, got the right torque specs. I'm just going to throw the wheel on. And the thing with brakes is the other side is going to be obviously the exact same, but it's going to go way faster because now you have an understanding of how this particular brake system is put together. They're all basically the same, but this one had a little bit of few nuances that took me a little longer than normal just because I've never done them on this car. But yeah, so these are the power stop towing brakes. I'm going to report back after I give it the proper bedding procedure, which they tell you on the instructions in the box, which is cool, on how to break them in. But yeah, so I'm going to throw this wheel up on there. The wheels get torqued to, I think, 103 foot-pounds. But yeah, that's it, guys. It's really easy. You can save yourself a ton of money doing this. I'm not going to video the other side because it's going to be the same thing, just smoother. But I will, when we go on the test drive, I'll let you know how it does and report back. All right, guys. Thanks. All right, guys. So I'm done with the brake job. Easy peasy on the passenger side. It was done in probably 12-15 minutes. So this is the power stop recommended bedding procedure. It requires 5 aggressive stops from 40 to 10, and then 5 from 35 to 5, and then a 5-minute cool down of no brake usage. So we're going to go do that now. So 40 aggressive. Okay, there's one. There's 2. There's 3. There's 5. So now it wants from 35 to 5. I'm gonna wait for this truck to go by, kind of. I'm basically slowing to basic stop. I don't think the speedometer's catching up. Is that 3 or 4? I'll do one more for safe. Alright, so now I drive for 5 minutes without brake usage. It's gonna be pretty boring, so we'll probably just drive around and throw that sucker on time lapse. Although I got a stop sign right here, I can't really stop. Maybe if I pull the e-brake to use the rear brake. That was successful. E-brake. Annoying beep, but that seemed to work. So I'm just going to drive for a few more minutes, and then that's basically it, y'all. That's the proper bedding procedure of your new brakes according to Power Stop. We'll see. It says after you drive for around 5 minutes, you're just basically allowing the brakes to cool and set up, I guess, for lack of a better term, and then you just drive as normal. So that's what we're gonna do, and that's it, guys. I appreciate you watching. Again, I'm not a mechanic or anything like that, but it's all nuts and bolts. You can save yourself a ton of money doing this stuff by yourself. This whole kit, front and rear, front rotors and pads, again, this is the heavy duty tow stuff, so it's a bit more expensive. It was only, I think, $220 shipped to my house, and of course just an hour or 2 of labor for free, and they're done. You know, the shop's going to charge you $800 for this, so keep that in mind. It's all easy stuff. I'm just going to finish up this drive, and I'll have new brakes, and we'll see how they go. I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.